YouTube, my name is Karen. I'm a comic convention crafter and vendor for my small business, So Endearing. Today is going to be a bit of a different video, as you've seen by the title. I was working on my spreadsheet where I track all of my expenses versus sales for all my shows, and I realized that when all is said and done, I actually may have lost money at Otakon. And I thought this was a really good opportunity to go through and talk about why that is. Really break down, deep dive into the financial side of running a small business. There are a lot of great convention vloggers out there, artistelli vloggers, who kind of gloss over a lot of the expenses that go into these shows. They might say, oh, I spent this much on hotel and booth, but it leaves out a lot of the detail. And I just wanted to use this opportunity to go through and really show you how it all adds up. I know I said before in my last video that I just kept having fee after fee after fee thrown at me at Otakon, and it added up a lot more quickly than even I realized at the time. When you look at my spreadsheet, I'll put it up here on the screen as we talk about it. This is kind of the breakdown for my shows. Starting out right out the gate, the booth fee for Otakon was $1,200. Probably one of the most expensive booth fees I've ever paid. Hotel was $432 at 75 cents. I wasn't mad about that. We stayed right in downtown. We were walking distance to the convention center. I thought that was a good compromise. Parking in downtown DC, there is no space anywhere to park an oversized van or vehicle with trailer. And when you look on Spot Hero, all of the spots say compact cars, small cars, no full-size SUVs, nothing. The only parking that I could find to park the Sprinter van that I had to rent was $280 for the weekend. So the DC Convention Center is like 2 to 3 floors underground where the exhibitor hall is. And as soon as the show started and the place filled up with people, my phone reception went to 0. I ended up having to pay for Wi-Fi for the weekend. This is the first time I've ever had to do this. Wi-Fi for the weekend for 2 devices was $455.22. Since doing this show and having paid such a ridiculous amount, I followed the lead of a bunch of other comic convention vendors and bought myself a Solace Lite. It was $80. You pay as you go. You don't have to have a monthly plan. So I can just buy a set amount of data and then use it as I need it, which is great. That's perfect. That's exactly what I need because I don't always need Wi-Fi. Now, one thing with the Washington Convention Center is they have the Shepherd Union folks. And in order to use the loading dock, you have a mandatory fee you have to pay. Because I was in a Sprinter van, my fee was $278. Covered load in and load out. They forklifted my stuff from the van to our booth and then from our booth back out to the van at the end of the show. This is probably one of the fees that I'm least annoyed about because it was the easiest load in and load out I've ever had. I enjoyed the experience. There is another fee that I paid related to the vehicle that is not on here, and it is my toll fees. Into and out of DC, there are toll roads. Some of them are optional, some of them are not. In total, my toll fees came to about $80. And then my U-Haul itself, I didn't have a U-Haul, I had a Enterprise Sprinter van, was $374.29. And then on top of the van, the toll fees, paying the union to get in and out, and the parking, I spent $120 on gas. Where a lot of stuff gets lost is that a lot of the videos you see online don't factor in the item cost and any damages that you might have at the show. At this show, on 3 separate occasions, I had people knock down the entire top shelf of tumblers. Several of them got broken. One person was kind enough to actually pay for the tumbler he broke. The other 2 people just bolted. So that $16 in damaged tumblers is having to be factored into my cost. Now, when we come over here to my materials cost, this does not factor in any of the time that I spent making the items, acquiring the items. It does not factor in the time to sit there and sell the items. This is just the gross raw cost of materials. For instance, my tumblers, the majority of them cost me between $8 and $10. The ones that I had at the show, most of them were $8. The sublimated tumblers that I buy on wholesale, I buy those for $10. Commercially made plushies I get for anywhere between $8 and $15 depending. The small batch plushies are much more expensive than the mass produced ones that I no longer buy, but I used to, and I still had a few left over from previous shows. And my amigurumi, this one I have a general idea of how much yarn I use per plushie. For each plushie I just have kind of a set amount for materials that I account for whenever I do my spreadsheets. Sometimes I'm probably underguessing, other times I'm overguessing, but it's the best I can do to help me keep my costs in check. And of the 56 amigurumi that I sold, I spent about $150 in yarn. Most of what I sold at Otakon were palm-sized. My octopi, Kirby's, possums, things like that. They're really small guys. Those tend to cost me $1 to $2 in raw materials. And so the rest of the fee that I'm charging with these plushies when I sell them is my time to make it, and also my time to sell them at the convention, because my time does have value. My earrings are mostly inexpensive to make. Some earrings that I have cost $1 to $2 to make, but the majority of my earrings cost me about 50 cents per pair to make. And then my stickers, my totes, those I can calculate the materials pretty closely to what they are. The totes themselves cost me a little over $1 per tote, or I have to make the art, print the art, add it to the tote, and then I have to account for my going to sell it. The pens and pencils are ones that I bought on wholesale, and those are just kind of a fun booth filler that I have. My estimated total materials cost for this show was $676. When you look at my sales, of course I talked about already how my sales fell well below my expectations for this show. That could be for a lot of reasons. I think most of the exhibitors hall was more commercial vendors and not artists. The ones that were artists out and about had much larger displays. They had clothing very often. So I think I was a little bit out of place with this show. I was going in thinking that I would be doing more than I did at SuperCon in sales. I was thinking it was going to be a 5-figure weekend. But my gross sales, after you factor in Fion's plushies that she sold, was $42.56. On the sheet, it shows my net profit as $423. However, I don't have the toll fees on here. And I also have not accounted for food on here. I don't put food on my spreadsheets largely because food is a very variable thing that I have a lot of control over. This show in particular, we probably splurged a little bit. We were in a really good location with a lot of really good restaurants nearby. We probably spent a little more than necessary, but even with just factoring what was available to us, I easily spent a couple $100 beating myself for the weekend. Friday, we spent $20 a piece on breakfast. Saturday, it was $30 a piece because the place we went on Friday was closed. And then Sunday, we spent about $20 a piece. Just in our food, we spent $140 on breakfast. And then we also, of course, went to dinner Thursday night, Friday night, and Saturday night. And we just stopped at Sheetz on the way home to pick up dinner on Sunday. So what do I take away from this convention, and where does that leave me for next year? This is probably the first convention where, even after accounting for food and everything, I haven't at least broken even this year. There is a lot that I learned. Like I said, Otakon was very much a gamble for me. I've never gone farther north like that. So I didn't know what was going to sell, what wouldn't sell. I didn't know what the population at Otakon was like. Would I do Otakon again? Yes, potentially, but I would go about it extremely differently. If I were to do Otakon again, I would put in for an Artist Alley standard table. My boyfriend and I spent a good chunk of time this past week re-evaluating my booth and my setup. I'll show you. We set up in the living room to try and figure out how to fit a little bit of everything from my booth onto a single table. So what I would do differently next year: I would get an Artist Alley table. That saves me $850. I would probably find a hotel that has breakfast included. That probably would come out to close to a net zero, but at least I wouldn't have to worry about finding breakfast in the morning. Since I would be at an Artist Alley table, I would be using my new setup, which can all fit in rolling suitcases, so I would be able to avoid the Union dock fees. I have my Solace Light, so I would be able to avoid Wi-Fi. If I am in my SUV without a trailer, I will be able to cut my cost of parking by at least $180. I won't have the U-Haul next year, hopefully, because my car is finally fixed, $2,000 later. I would make sure to take the route to DC that avoids the toll roads. And I would save on gas too, because my little Jeep is pretty good on gas on the highway, especially without the trailer on it. So I guesstimate I would probably save about $40 there as well. Just cutting these costs could save me over $2,200. I'll put the final total on the screen. If I had done this show $2,200 cheaper, even if I had somewhat less sales, this would be a good show for me. I came out right about zero, maybe at a slight loss this year. If I could cut all these expenses and still had similar sales and I could get that $2,000 profit margin, that would be a great show for me. I'm still on the fence. Like I said, next year I have SuperCon at the beginning of July, and then I also have GalaxyCon in July as well. Coming into Otakon next year would be on the heels of those two shows. And I don't know that I am up for that degree of busy, but I might just throw my hat into the ring and see what happens anyways, because YOLO. The thing with doing these conventions is it's a constant learning process. I have gotten a little too big, I think, and I'm trying to reel it back in, especially for some of these higher cost shows, and go for the smaller booth, the smaller selection, because I can better curate what I bring and then hopefully improve my profit margins so that this is something I can continue to do. I love doing the convention. This year, I'm kind of at a net zero. Everything that I've earned has either been put back into the business or it was used to pay myself back for money that I invested in booth fees or my trailer and things like that. So hopefully after this year and the lessons learned, I can turn next year around and make it a much more profitable adventure. Yeah. So that's how I lost money at Otakon. I thought that this sort of breakdown might be super helpful for you guys, especially if you're just getting into the convention business. I'm not the most experienced veteran, but I've been doing this now for a year and a half, and I feel like I've experienced a lot of poor decision making, a lot of overzealous decision making. I've overbooked myself. I've taken gambles on unknown shows. I've taken gambles on super expensive shows, and so hopefully the lessons that I learned at Otakon can help you guys make better decisions for either starting or, picking your shows for next year. If you made it to the end, first off, leave me a comment. Tell me, have you done Otakon? Is it like your dream convention? If it's not Otakon, what is your biggest, I'm hoping to do this next year or in the future, con? If you just like to go to cons, what is your favorite thing about them? What is the biggest lesson that you have learned in the convention circuit? Whether that's money or, the things that you make, anything like that. Make sure, if you've made it to the end, to like this video. That really helps me out. Be sure to subscribe to this channel if you like hearing about honest opinions and feedback on what it's like to work these various conventions and the lessons I learn along the way. Take care of yourself. If you're going to get into this, make sure you do it because you love it. I know we see all of these vendors on here that are like, I had so much in sales at this show, but those are the anomalies. And so we want to be realistic around here. We're realistic girlies. Hope you all have a great day. And I will see you next time. Bye-bye.